Oh, hello and welcome to my presentation on Lee Scratch Perry, the Upsettler, and this will mostly feature the this will mostly feature when Lee Scratch Perry was recording out at the Black Art Studio, because Perry had such a long career that it's very hard to condense a relatively short presentation on it. So I just thought I'd pick a time when he was at his most creative and producing his best stuff, and I believe that was during the Black Ark Studio. And we'll also discuss how his mixing experiments created dub music. So, Rainford Hugh Perry, or Lee Scratch Perry as he's more widely known, is a groundbreaking Jamaican reggae producer renowned for his innovative techniques and production values. Some would label him a genius, others say he's a certified lunatic. In a sense, he's both. But above all else, Lee Perry is a godlike figure in the world of reggae. A songwriter, mixer and producer who, alongside the likes of King Tubby, helped mould the sound of dub and made reggae music a big part of pop music's landscape. He recorded some very famous acts. Some of the most renowned of these would be Bob Marley and the Wailers and the Congos. His method of producing and mixing was jaw-droppingly innovative and quite audacious, and would help mold the sound of dub music just from his experiments, and then people copying his trend. Many credit King Tubby as the godfather of dub, but just as many would argue that it was Perry who would take the genre further than anyone else and broke down new grounds in Jamaican music, establishing a genre that reached the far corners of the globe. So the first track we're going to play is called People Funny Boy, and this is one of the most renowned tracks from Perry's early releases, and it was released in 1968, and it contains some very innovative sampling, which we will discuss after playing it. So here's People Funny Boy. Why people funny boy? Why people funny boy? Know that you reach the top and you turn big shot. All I've done for you, you don't remember that. When you were down and out, I used to help you out. But now that you're in jackpot, you don't remember that. Now that you turn big shot, why you have big chat. You're lucky to have rice and peas a yard. But me, poor me, don't have none at all. I want a yard tonight. So, yeah, that was one of Perry's early efforts that really demonstrated his creative prowess with the track People Funny Boy. The song is noteworthy for its imaginative use of a sample. In this instance, it was a crying baby. So Perry took a crying baby, made it cry, and he recorded it down, and it wasn't very rarely. It was never done at the time. He broke new ground with it. It sounded like no record ever made at this stage in music history. Techniques included dynamically adding extensive echo, reverb, panoramic delay, and occasional dubbing of vocal or instrumental snippets from the original versions of other works. So he was one of the first samplers who really liked to take a lot of elements from different tracks and blend them all together. What is significant about the record is that, as well as selling incredibly well in Jamaica, it was the first Jamaican pop record to use looping, lazy, bass-driven beats that would soon be known as the reggae rhythm. and signalled the shift from the super fast and upbeat ska to the booming, throbbing, lazy rhythms of roots reggae. And during this period now, when it came into the 1970s and into the early 1980s, Perry recorded out of the Black Ark studio, which was a very, very famous studio in just outside of Kingston, Jamaica. And I was going to play a video now which shows him in action. It shows how busy he was in the studio, and how that he's mixing in real time, and creating all these reverb and echo and delay effects that would become known as dub music. And I'm just going to play that there now.
Feeling fresh, feeling good, feeling out the way man I said there. Feeling red, maka high.
Junior Mervyn, Upsetters and the Heptones all rehearse here.
Scratch's real name is Lee Perry. He regards all the greats, including Bob Marley. Even Paul McCartney is coming here from England, because Scratch has a sound and a rhythm of his own. He calls it rockers. When Scratch begins a session, first he balances drum and bass for the basic rhythm. Ghetto music, always drum and bass. Then Scratch will balance all the other instruments till he's ready to start recording. When the balance is right, the Upsetters lay down the rhythm track. That's how reggae is recorded.
Let's go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Though there seems to be no kind of order or discipline, Scratch knows exactly what he wants, and the musicians respect that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
By other people's standards, the instruments may sound distorted, the balance way off. But it's just these rough edges that give reggae the kind of raw sound they can never copy abroad. When Scratch is happy with the rhythm, he'll get Junior Mervyn and the Heptones to put the vocals on. Rhythm and then lyrics. That's how Scratch describes reggae. Rhythm from the ghetto, lyrics from the streets.
Yes, Rasta.
So, Scratch's own recording facilities, built in his own back garden, were known as the Black Ark Studios, and were legendary for producing some of Jamaica's most celebrated and innovative recording studios. Excuse me. Although the studio itself was quite bog standard in its setup, and particularly basic with regards to some of the dated equipment employed by Perry, it was nevertheless the breeding ground for many of Jamaica's most innovative sounds and recording techniques in the latter half of the 1970s. Perry was when success came, he tried to upgrade some of the facilities, but he didn't like he liked the bog standard stuff. We'll discuss that now more in a moment. And Perry was never one to do the typical techniques and practices, as you can see from the video that was just played. His mixing was a performance in itself, producing all the effects in real time, experimenting with the mixing board to help create a new groundbreaking sound known as dub. His mixing board was essentially used as an instrument. So, Scratch's studio's legendary reputation comes about from his innovative production techniques employed by himself to create sounds that eluded even his fellow contemporaries. His fellow peers didn't have a clue how he was getting these sounds done, and they could not compete. So, they were and continued to be. These have continued to be an amazing source, a source of amazement to later generations of music producers. An example of Perry's innovative style was his ability to overdub layers of sound effects and instrumentation on each recording track of a basic 4-track machine with such precise timing and in such a way that the resulting sound would destroy the competition from Jamaica's other top producers using the latest 16-track mixing consoles. So we're now going to play a video called African Skank from the album Upsetter's 14 Dub Blackboard Jungle. We can view the results of Perry's experimentations after it's been completed and put on record. So here that goes. So, as I stated earlier, Perry didn't. He was happy with his setup, and he created some unbelievable, jaw-dropping techniques and innovations out of it. And so from here's what in the early days of the Black Ark Studio. Here's his setup. It included an Alice mixer. And this, in Scratch's opinion, they weren't even professional mixers. They were only toys. He used a Graham Spring reverb, a Roland Space Echo RE201, Martez amplifier for instruments, an AKG drum machine for vocals, a TAC 3340 quarter-inch 4-track recorder, a TAC 2-track recorder for mixdowns. In 1975, he added some new equipment, including better mics, a Soundcraft mixer, which replaced the Alice, a Mutter and Phaser, which was an early demo model. And in around 1975, he was given a Tech quarter-inch 8-track recorder, but unfortunately, that just gathered dust in the studio as Scratch was a bigger fan of his bog standard 4-track recorder, so he stuck with the tried and tested. So I'm just going to play one more track from Lee Scratch Perry, and this track is called Favorite Dish, and you can hear more innovative sounds, and we'll discuss those sounds afterwards. So let's take a look at it there now.
Feeling kinda peckish, dying to reach home to have my favorite dish, yaki and saltfish, dumpling and ayana, cow foot and split peas, tripe and can't go wrong. I don't need no shiny brush. He that he taught us, and I always stand up strong, and I never use the bomb.
So yeah, many of his songs, of Scratch's songs, are layered with a variety of subtle effects created from broken glass, ghastly sights and screeches, crying babies, yet again, falling rain and cow noises. Well, as an example of this can be found on the track we just played, Favorite Dish. While it was believed that Perry recorded the mooing noises from actual cows, it was in fact the baritone voice of fellow reggae artist and collaborator Watty Burnett, using a tinfoil laced cardboard tube that produced the cow-like noises. These and other noble recording techniques helped define the Black Ark sound, as well as Lee Scratch's creative legacy. Unfortunately, like all good things must come to the end, and the Black Ark studio was burned to the ground in the early 1980s, which Scratch took credit for, claiming he did it in a fit of rage. As you know, he was an erratic individual, he a bit unpredictable, so he burnt down the studio. After this, he left Jamaica and moved between such places as England, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and the United States. He actually settled down in Switzerland, where he lives now. In this time, he performed frequently and started making records with a conglomeration of different collaborators. But I think that it's best to say that it was the Black Ark studio where his most famous and the most creative part of his career. I think that's hard to argue against. Before we leave the presentation, I'll say Perry did other mad techniques. He used to bury microphones underneath the ground. He used to tap just to get the mad echoey vibrations, and he liked to do a lot of mad spiritual rituals before he would record. He would like to bless the studio and throw water and sometimes pour his own urine all over the studio, just because he thought that would create more. It'd be more creative. The creative juices would be flowing better after such antics. But yeah, that was so. He Jamaica's a violent place, and he had to leave it, so he burnt down the studio before he left, and that was the end of that chapter of Lee Scratch's Perry's career. And I've been Keith Kinsella, and thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.